Did you enjoy playing such a strong, heroic female character, and if so, why?
I did. But I also enjoyed that she's not just those things. Rey is kind of a simple young woman, and she just gets swept onto this incredible journey.
Rey Skywalker gets a lot of shit. Many fans criticize her of being overpowered, unrelatable, and a huge fan of identity theft.
Rey Skywalker.
You sit on a throne of lies.
And ultimately, I have to agree with those critiques. Now, I've been a little hesitant to discuss anything related to the sequel trilogy on this channel, mostly because those movies have been debated over to death. There are YouTubers who have made entire careers over criticizing these movies, so this kind of leaves me in a position where I don't really know how to talk about these movies, because anything I say has probably already been covered. But after doing those reflective arc videos for Luke and Anakin, I began to wonder if maybe Rey also fits into that structure. The sequel trilogy has been accused many times of being a rip-off of the original trilogy, and Rey being a rip-off of Luke Skywalker. But I set out my assertion that Anakin was also a repeat of Luke, and how that was by design. So couldn't the same be said about Rey? Is there some sort of message that we're missing? So I decided to rewatch the sequel trilogy and see if maybe that might be the case, and I concluded, yes. But no. Let me explain. I'm gonna say something that might sound a little bit controversial to some. I think Rey starts off as an okay character. When rewatching these movies, I noticed that Rey actually follows the same reflective arcs as Luke and Anakin. But as the trilogy goes on, she steers further and further from this type of story structure to the point where I don't even think even Lucasfilm knew what to do with her. Her character arc is so topsy-turvy that it's really difficult to define her as a person. But I'm gonna do my best anyway. Also, just a disclaimer, I won't be trying to talk about the sequel trilogy as a whole. One day I'll get into how I feel about those movies, but for now, I'm just focusing on Rey's character. Alright, let's start from the beginning. When we first meet Rey, she's introduced to the audience in a short dialogueless... is that a word? Sequence where we get to learn about her character. She's a scavenger surviving by selling off parts of old warships, and she's been doing it for a very long time. Yet she yearns to be free and experience the galaxy, but won't for some reason, stuck in this constant daily loop until destiny comes knocking on her door. Sounds familiar, right? Yeah, so far she does seem like a Luke variant. However, while Luke and Anakin feel trapped on their respective desert homeworlds, they at least have something that Rey doesn't. Family. Luke has his aunt and uncle, and Anakin has his mother. Rey, on the other hand, has no one, and funnily enough, this makes her feel even more attached to her world than Luke and Anakin. Unlike them, she feels she has to stay where she is, so that her family can find her. Rey's wound is kinda like the reverse of Anakin. While his wound comes from leaving someone he loves behind, Rey's wound comes from being left behind by those she loves. And much like Luke, she's grown up without knowing who her family is, and having a misconception of who they are.
For my family. They'll be back. One day.
So far, this is actually an interesting character. Rey's arc in The Force Awakens is about learning to let go. If we adjust this to the positive change arc, then we see that her wound is being abandoned on Jakku. Her want is to be with her family and leave Jakku, but the lie that she believes is that her family will come back for her. What she needs to do is let go of this idea of a happy family and learn to do things for herself. When boiled down, all three character arcs are about letting go. Anakin's is about failing to let go. Luke's is about letting go of the misconceptions of his father, and Rey's is about abandonment. Throughout the second arc, she's pulled into an adventure with Finn and BD-1, even meeting old Han Solo and Chewie and seeing new worlds that amaze her, and yet she still wants to go back to Jakku. The lie she believes is holding her back from her destiny, which is an interesting twist when compared to Luke and Anakin, whose lies push them towards their destinies. This even culminates in the scene where she's being faced with the reality that her family are never coming back, that she truly is alone, but she doesn't have to be. She's given an opportunity to move forward and to build a life better than what she has, but she rejects it. It's only after she's kidnapped by Kylo Ren and taken to Starkiller Base that she begins to accept the truth. The people that she's been hoping for aren't going to help her, and that she has to do it herself. Which makes it all the more fitting that her force powers kick in here. Every time Rey moves further from her lie, the stronger she becomes. And then, during her escape attempt, she finds her friends who risk their lives to come back and save her. Finally, someone came back for her. And it wasn't the family she's yearned for, but the friends she made along the way. Watching this scene actually made me feel for Rey. It was emotional, it was sympathetic, and absolutely the last time the character was written well. At this point, Rey's character starts going downhill. The series then becomes less about this arc and more about showing how awesome she is. And yeah, I know Rey seems really great at everything throughout the whole movie, but I kinda gave it a pass. Mostly, because at least her growing skill tree makes sense thematically. The further she moves away from her lie, the stronger she becomes. But after this point here, the character just stops progressing. She's already her best self. Where Luke and Anakin ended their first movies with a feeling that this is only the beginning of their journey. Rey's journey feels like it's already done and doesn't need to change. She's now committed to embracing her destiny. Beats Kylo Ren, still not over that.
Oh my god.
And goes to train with Luke on Ahch-To. But this ending just doesn't feel satisfying because what exactly is Rey going to learn when she's already progressed so far? She's already beaten her antagonist, so what is there for her to learn? Well, let's explore that. So The Last Jedi picks up where The Force Awakens left off, with Rey ready to learn the ways of the Force from Luke Skywalker, the hero of the last trilogy and the last hope of the Jedi Order. Oh, never mind. Yeah, Rey hardly does any training in this movie. She has like a couple of scenes, but that's about it. Now there is a really good scene where Luke is teaching Rey about the Force. It starts off with Rey connecting to the world around her and understanding how everything is connected. This kind of reminds me of that Guru episode in Avatar, and I like it. Then it ends with Rey losing control as she's pulled towards the dark side that offers her answers that she desperately wants. The lie about needing a family still has a hold of her and is affecting her abilities. This actually works as a reflection of both Luke and Anakin, who had to face their lies in their second movies in order to grow. Except for one issue. Rey's issue with her parents is no longer about how they abandoned her, but about her parents' identity. Now I'm gonna give Rian Johnson the benefit of the doubt here, because it's not entirely his fault. Granted, he didn't help the situation. Rey's arc in The Force Awakens seems to be about her letting go of this idea of a family who will come back to save her. But bless J.J. Abrams, he couldn't help but build a mystery box around her.
Who's the girl?
What girl?
The scavenger resisted you.
She is strong with the Force. Untrained but stronger than she knows.
It's pretty obvious that JJ was planning for Rey's parents to be someone. Maybe not someone we knew, but definitely someone important within the Star Wars universe. So we never really get to see them in a flashback or anything. It's also pretty obvious that JJ hadn't yet figured out who the parents were, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Writers don't need to have everything planned out, but they do need a path for which the character is going. And because of this, the internet speculated on Rey's parents hard, naming every Jedi under the sun in order to properly explain Rey's unnatural connection to the Force, and explaining why she's so powerful. So this kinda left Rian Johnson with a difficult task of answering the question that had a lot of expectation weighing on it. Who are Rey's parents? And I really don't think he handled it well. See, instead of focusing on Rey's abandonment issues, the movie is very focused on teasing the audience about Rey's parents. There actually is an interesting arc with Rey feeling isolated and falling back into her lie that she needs her family, after not getting any help from Luke because he's too sad, and leaning closer to Kylo Ren and the dark side, who are actually offering her answers. This could have been an effective way to fix her character arc, which felt finished from the first movie, and it does reflect Luke and Anakin's arcs, who both had to face their lies head on in their second movies. But because Johnson keeps teasing her parents, it takes away focus from Rey and focuses more on her background. Now we only care about her to find out who her parents are, and not about her as a character. And sadly, this all comes to a grinding halt once we figure out who they are.
Sam.
They were nobody.
We threw away a decent character arc for that? Some of you might be wondering what my problem is. The story is still about her understanding she was abandoned, right? I'm not really bothered by the answer, I'm more bothered by how it was handled. Johnson leads us on by teasing us with the answer throughout the movie, knowing full well fans had speculated this for 2 whole years, and reveals it in such a melodramatic fashion only for it to mean nothing? And because of this, we don't care about Rey at all, but only who her parents are. Her reaction is her saying, they were no one, showing the whole drama is centered around her identity and not the damage they did to their child. A lot of people compare this to the I am your father scene in Empire. Don't don't drag that scene down. That scene works because it relies on flipping everything we knew about Vader on its head. We see there's more to the story than we were led to believe. Well, this scene relies on giving us knowledge that we've been speculating for a while, and we find out there's nothing more to the story. I genuinely believe that if Rey's parents were revealed to us in the first movie, and we saw her getting abandoned here, then fans would be a lot more forgiving. It would also allow the writers to properly explore her feelings of abandonment, whilst not being overshadowed by this annoying mystery box question. So this movie ends with Rey rejecting the dark side and the lie again, and showing just how great she is in a display of power that just doesn't feel earned. Whatever, let's talk about the third movie. So the Rise of Skywalker follows the tradition of trying to continue a character arc that already feels wrapped up. When Luke and Anakin start off their third movies, they're going through an existential crisis. Luke learning about his father and feeling conflicted on his views on the dark side, and Anakin diving more and more into his lie and killing an unarmed opponent, going against the Jedi Code. And Rey is also going through an existential crisis about her family. Again. See, while Luke and Anakin's crises come from the events of the last movie, Rey just feels like a retread. We already sorted out her parents, we don't need to do it again. But this time her arc is completely taken off the rails with this big reveal.
You're his granddaughter. You are a Palpatine.
So yeah, Rey is the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine, and her parents left her on Jakku, not because they didn't care about her, but because they loved her and wanted to protect her. Now her arc has completely shifted from learning to let go of her parents and accepting the fact she was abandoned to fight the darkness within. Except what darkness within? Rey has willingly rejected the dark side twice in this trilogy. There's no indicator that she would turn to the dark side and take the throne of the Sith, like the movie wants you to think. This could reflect Luke and Anakin, who have to face the darkness within in their third movies, but it made more sense there. Anakin became more disillusioned with the Jedi and was pushed further towards the dark side. Luke had to realize just how much like his father he really was, and how easy it was for him to make the same mistakes. But Rey doesn't suffer from these issues. She always shows that she's on the side of good. She already faced her own darkness in the last movie and came out the situation unscathed, unlike the other two who carry permanent scars. So when Rise of Skywalker tries to trick me into thinking Rey will become evil, I'm not buying it. I'm supposed to believe she could be evil because her granddad was evil. Once again, Rey is only being defined by her family, and not her character. But the bit that really gets me is just before the third act when Rey goes back to Ahch-To and speaks to spooky Luke Skywalker, who gives her Leia's lightsaber, showing that she's welcomed as a Skywalker and that family is more than just blood. The exact same thing she went through in The Force Awakens, but worse, because Rey is still being defined by family, only now it's another family. So she goes and faces her grandpappy and faces the darkness within, defeats him with the power of friendship, and is brought back to life by her friend, Ben Solo.
It's almost hurtful to me to watch her be so dumb.
Rey then ends the movie burying Luke and Leia's lightsabers at the old Lars farm on Tatooine, which doesn't represent anything, and then assumes the alias Rey Skywalker, once again learning not to define herself by her family, by finding a new family to define herself by instead. The final shot is not of her being with the friends she's made along the way, but on a desert planet, alone. Just as she started. When I rewatched these movies, I was really hoping that there was something that I was missing, and to a degree I was correct. There actually is a decent character arc for Rey that does reflect Luke and Anakin's. In areas. All three learn that they have a great destiny that they have to follow, but are burdened by a wound in their past and a lie they believe that holds them back, and they must learn to face that burden and let go of it, all to various degrees of success. But where Rey falls short in this is that her arc isn't consistent. Her arc starts off with learning to be defined by herself and not family, to being defined by family. She doesn't really learn on her journey, and when she does show signs of growth, she regresses to do it again. While Luke and Anakin were written by one man who had something to say with them, Rey was tossed around by multiple writers throughout her trilogy. She's a character made by committee, and not one made by any passion or love, like her predecessors were, and so she falls short of her potential and fails to truly reflect the characters that came before her. Hey everyone, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and here's a sneak preview for the next video.
How many good guys are left? How many stayed that way?
If that interests you, then please subscribe so you can see it when it comes out. Also leave a like on this video, it helps the channel out, and I'll see you all next time. Have a good day.